We're continuing with the Martin Luther King speech entitled Birth of a New Nation. At this point, Prime Minister Kwame Nkrumah had actually been elected, and he was just describing uh, the passing of the guard, so to speak, and the birthing of Ghana from the Gold Coast. All right, so let's continue. This nation was now out of Egypt and has crossed the Red Sea. Now it will confront its wilderness. Like any breaking loose from Egypt, there is a wilderness ahead. There is a problem of adjustment. And Nkrumah realizes that. There is always the wilderness standing before you. For instance, it's a one-crop country, cocoa mainly. 60% of the cocoa of the world comes from the Gold Coast, or from Ghana. In order to make the economic system more stable, it will be necessary to industrialize. Cocoa is too fluctuating to base a whole economy on that. So there's a necessity of industrializing. And Nkrumah said to me that one of the first things that he will do is to work towards industrialization. And also, he plans to work toward the whole problem of increasing the cultural standards of the community. Still, 90% of the people are illiterate, and it is necessary to lift the whole cultural standard of the community in order to make it possible to stand up in the free world. Yes, there is a wilderness ahead, though it is my hope that even people from America will go to Africa as immigrants, right there to the Gold Coast, and lend their technical assistance, for there is a great need and there are rich opportunities there. Right now is the time that American Negroes can lend their technical assistance to growing a new nation. I was very happy to see already people who have moved in and making good. The son of the late president of Bennett College, Dr. Jones, is there, who started an insurance company and making good, going to the top. A doctor from Brooklyn, New York had just come in that week, and his wife is also a dentist, and they are living there now, going in there and working the people, and the people love them. There will be hundreds and thousands of people, I'm sure, going over to make for the growth of this new nation. And Nkrumah made it very clear to me that he would welcome any persons coming there as immigrants to live there. Now, I don't think that because they have 5 million people, the nation can't grow. That is a small that's a small nation to be overlooked. Never forget the fact that when America was born in 1776, when it received its independence from the British Empire, there were less than 4 million people in America, and today it's more than 160 million. So never underestimate people because it's small now. America was smaller than Ghana when it was born. There is a great day ahead. The future is on its side. It's going now through the wilderness, but the promised land is ahead. Now I want to take just a few minutes before I close to say 3 or 4 things that this reminds us of the things that it says to us. Things that we must never forget as we ourselves find ourselves breaking loose from an evil Egypt, trying to move through the wilderness towards the promised land of cultural integration. Ghana has something to say to us. It says to us first that the oppressor never voluntarily gives freedom to the oppressed. You've got to work for it. And if Nkrumah and the people of the Gold Coast had not stood up persistently revolting against the system, it would still be a colony of the British Empire. Freedom is never given to anybody, for the oppressor has you in domination because he plans to keep you there and never voluntarily gives you up. And that is where the strong resistance comes. Privileged classes never give up their privileges without strong resistance. So don't go out this morning with any illusions. Don't go back into your homes and around Montgomery thinking that Montgomery City Commission and that all of those forces in leadership of the South will eventually work out this thing for Negroes. It's going to work out. It's going to roll in on the wheels of inevitability. If we wait for it to work itself out, it will never be worked out. Freedom only comes through persistent revolt, through persistent agitation, through persistently rising up against the system of evil. The bus protest is just the beginning. Buses are now integrated in Montgomery, but that is just the beginning. And don't sit down and do nothing because now the buses are integrated, because if we stop now, we'll be in the dungeons of segregation and discrimination for another 100 years. And our children and our children's children will suffer all of the bondage that we have lived under for years. It never comes voluntarily. We've got to keep on keeping on in order to gain freedom. It never comes like that. It would be fortunate if people in power had sense enough to go on and give up, but they don't do it like that. It is not done voluntarily, but is done through the pressure that comes about from people who are oppressed. If there had not been a Gandhi in India with all of his noble followers, India would never have been free. If there had not been an Nkrumah and his followers in Ghana, Ghana would still be a British colony. If there had not been abolitionists in America, both Negro and white, we might still stand today in the dungeons of slavery. And then because there have been in every period, and there are always those people in every period of human history who don't mind getting their necks cut off, who don't mind being persecuted and discriminated and kicked about because they know that freedom is never given out, but it comes through the persistent and continual agitation and revolt on the part of those who are caught in the system. Ghana teaches us that. It says to us another thing. It reminds us of the fact that a nation or a people can break loose from an oppression without violence. Nkrumah says in the first 2 pages of his autobiography, which was published on the 6th of March, a great book which you ought to read, he said that he studied the social systems of social philosophers, and he started studying the life of Gandhi and his techniques. And he said that in the beginning, he could not see how they could ever get loose from colonialism without an armed revolt, without armies and ammunition rising up. Then he said after he continued to study Gandhi and continued to study this technique, he came to see that the only way was through nonviolent positive action. And he called this program Positive Action. And it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? That here is a nation that is now free, and is free without rising up with arms and with ammunition. It is free though through nonviolent means. Because of that, British Empire will not have the bitterness for Ghana that she has for China, so to speak. Because of that, when the British Empire leaves Ghana, she leaves with a different attitude than she would have left with if she had been driven out by armies. We've got to revolt in such a way that after the revolt is over, we can live with people as brothers and sisters. Our aim must never be to defeat them or humiliate them. On the night of the state ball, standing up there with some people, Mordecai Johnson called to my attention the fact that the Prime Minister Kwame Nkrumah was there dancing with the Duchess of Kent. And I said, isn't this something? Here it is this once serf, the once slave, now dancing with the Lord on an equal plane. And that is done because there is no bitterness. These two nations will be able to live together and work together because the breaking loose was through nonviolence and not through violence. The aftermath of nonviolence is the creation of a beloved community. The aftermath of nonviolence is redemption. The aftermath of nonviolence is reconciliation. The aftermath of violence are emptiness and bitterness. This is the thing I'm concerned about. Let us fight passionately and unrelentingly for the goals of justice and peace, but let's be sure that our hands are clean in the struggle. Let us never fight with falsehood and violence and hate and malice, but always fight with love, so that when the day comes that the walls of segregation have completely crumbled in Montgomery, that we will be able to live with these people as brothers and sisters.